Okay, so we have written industrial reform. Did we write something? Dictated, right? Excuse me. How do we go back? Android. Okay. So one is, so we have seen, I think we have discussed Niti Aayog and planning. That's done, right? Okay. So why tax reforms as part of structural reforms? So this, of course, taxing, we will be doing it in detail, basically in the taxing class. Okay. But tax reforms are very important, not only for growth, but also to handle government's deficits. To handle government's deficit. So deficits cannot be handled without appropriate tax collections. Deficits cannot be handled without appropriate tax collection. So when IMF was asking us to maintain macroeconomic stability, so one of that is obviously we have to reduce these deficits like fiscal deficit. Reduce these deficits like FD. How to reduce FD? Obviously, one is you have to reduce the gap between revenues and expenditures of the government. Okay, so revenues and expenditures of the government. So one, either you reduce the expenditures and or increase the revenue. For increasing revenue, one important aspect is tax. So to increase revenue, one important aspect is obviously tax. See, without proper tax methodology, government will lose a lot of revenue. See, so during that point of time, there was a lot of tax inefficiency. Okay. So I would have discussed tax rate you can't increase, yes, beyond a point. Why? Because it will lead to tax evasion. Okay. So the alternative we have is either you have to reduce the tax inefficiency, number one, and widen the tax base. These are the things that has to be done. So tax inefficiency, did I use the word cascading effect? Discuss, right? Cascading effect, right? Okay, so you have to reduce these inefficiencies. Okay. How can tax reforms improve jobs? Is there any link between tax and jobs? Less tax, more income? More tax, more infrastructure development. More tax means who is collecting? Government. So you believe that government should collect more tax. Okay. By increasing the base. And government should spend it back. Okay. Anything else? Lower the tax, investment will be increasing. Okay. Lower the tax, investment will increase. Okay. And therefore, more jobs will get created. This is what he says. Huh? Okay, lower tax, so they'll produce more, so more jobs will get created. More private firms will start producing and create jobs. Okay, okay. See, suppose there is this company, let's say, some organization, some PSU. Okay, in and around these PSUs, you will find small ancillaries. Discussed, I believe. Okay. Small ancillaries. And these ancillaries lead to creation of what? Jobs. Okay. Provided BHEL tries to specialize. Specialize means I'll not do everything. I will subcontract things to other manufacturing units. Okay. If there is tax inefficiency, automatically BHL or whether it is Tata, they will try to do everything by themselves. Are you able to get this point? I've explained this, I believe. Okay. So ancillarization or more ancillary industries are going to develop if your tax systems are efficient. Are you able to get my point? See, India's case, the biggest challenge was there are a lot of tax inefficiency cases already filed in Mumbai High Court and even in the Supreme Court, but they were least bothered in terms of bringing in reforms. So it took almost like more than 12 years to bring this reform called GST in 2017. So GST was a reform which Vajpayee ji was trying to bring in. Okay, so but in 2017 again, we were able to bring something like GST. GST is a tax reform, isn't it? Okay, so in 2005 we came up with reforms like VAT, value added tax, etc. Okay, so these are tax reforms. In 1990s also what we observe is income tax slabs were there were too many income tax slabs. Too many slabs, too much of inefficiency. Okay, so what they decided is tax reform should focus on few things. One is tax reform should focus on reducing the tax rates. Tax rates should be decent enough, widening the tax base and reducing tax inefficiency. As a process of all this only, okay, they started bringing in different taxes like MAT, etc. That we will not discuss now, but the sales tax, value added tax, if we talk about VAT and all, the concept of VAT and all was introduced after 1990s at the state level, that is after 2000, 2005. This clearly shows that tax reforms were a major part of the reforms during that point of time, that is after 1990s or 1992 plus. Is this clear? Okay, that much I think it is clear. So you know ancillarization. Ancillarization creates jobs. High tax rates will never increase the revenues over a longer period. High tax rates. Why? It can lead to tax evasion and it can also lead to tax avoidance also. Tax evasion means it is illegal. Evasion is illegal. Are you able to get this? And I would have used the word called globalization of profits. Huh? Globalization of profits, right? Okay, so I would have given this example of Google. Google was basically making profits in India, but they were not paying taxes in India, and they nicely send their profits back to their country. So this is a common phenomena which you find even today. It's a common phenomena which you find even today, and government cannot be so assertive. Government can't say, hey Google, pay. Hey Google, pay means Google will say, chalo hum nikalte hain. You need demographic dividend you want to reap, you need Google. Okay, so this is how it is. Okay, so therefore you cannot be too assertive with companies. Okay, so and there were several cases also. For example, earlier there was this case, if you have heard, very famous case of Vodafone. Vodafone was one. Vodafone. See, Vodafone case, it's a very common case for IRS IT people. Okay, so earlier it was not Vodafone, it was Hutchison SR. That Hutch dog, wherever you go. Okay, it was not Vodafone dog, it was a Hutch dog, right? Pug. Yeah, Pug. Yes. Yes, no? Pug only, no? Chinese breed, yeah. So, now with it, Vodafone Hutch case, if you see, what was the inefficiency here? Who acquired whom? Vodafone acquired Hutch. Vodafone acquired Hutch. Okay. Did they do it in India? No. What they did is, there was one pocket company in Cayman Islands. Cayman Islands is a tax heaven. Tax heaven means like Swiss. Okay, you have Swiss or Cayman Islands, Mauritius. There, the tax rules are very, very liberal. They'll not ask you for any questions, no questions asked. Go put the money, and they'll not ask you how did you earn. Actually, there are cases, in fact, Aishwarya Rai and Amitabh also, there were some cases like Panama Papers, etc. Okay, so there were some cases where they have a lot of money, so what to do, how do you save? Okay, so there are certain issues there. Okay, now here, if you see this Cayman Island, there was a company, this company called X. Now this company was holding some stake in Hutch. This company was holding around 67% share in Hutch. Are you able to get this? Okay, you will be called owner if you hold how much? 51%. Okay. Now what Vodafone did, instead of acquiring Hutch in India, Vodafone acquired this X company in Cayman Islands. Okay, and it need not pay any tax here because it's a tax haven. Indirectly, once you acquired X, they removed the boards of Hutch in India and it became what? Vodafone. This is what they did. And when Income Tax Department went and asked, why are you not paying tax in India? Okay, so they said, go refer back your basics. Okay, so go refer back your basics, read properly and come. Why? Because in your Income Tax Act, there is an Income Tax Act, 1961. Okay, so there is no line written that if you do a transaction outside India, you should pay tax in India. That line is not there. If you do a transaction outside India, you should pay tax in India. That line is not there. So how do you ask us to pay tax? And they started doing business in India. Are you able to get this? This is a clear indication how they save taxes. So tax reforms are a continuous process, but earlier tax reforms were mainly done because our tax systems were highly inefficient. Hope it is clear. Understood. Okay, so this is about the tax related aspect. Clear? Okay. So, I didn't dictate anything with respect to tax. So put the heading tax. Tax reforms. Tax reform. See, detail we will not discuss tax now. Okay, in fiscal policy. That will be in fiscal policy. Write down. Tax reforms are concerned with. Write down. Tax reforms are concerned with. Tax reforms are concerned with. Reforms in government taxation. Reforms in government taxation and public expenditure policies. And public expenditure policies, which are collectively known as fiscal policy, which are collectively known as fiscal policy. I mentioned what is fiscal policy earlier, right? Continue. Fiscal policy deals with revenues and expenditures of the government. Revenues and expenditure. Revenues and expenditures of the government. Revenues and expenditures. See, some countries like France, they have come up with taxes like GAFA, if you know. Okay, some countries like France, they have come up with taxes like GAFA. GAFA is basically Google, Amazon, Facebook, Apple, Google, Amazon, Facebook, Apple, separately a tax to tax these companies because these companies can easily evade taxes. Okay, so there, for example, Facebook, physical presence is not in India, but Facebook does a lot of business in India, isn't it? You want to boost your post, etc. You pay a lot of money. Okay, likes बढ़ाने के लिए, likes बढ़ाने के लिए भी, yeah, you pay money. Then how do you tax such companies whose physical presence is not in India? So it is becoming even more difficult to tax such companies like Google, Amazon, Facebook, etc. So France also has come up with something called as a tax called GAFA. Is this clear? Okay, so all this is basically to streamline taxing system, Now today, if you observe Modi ji's government is more into fiscal prudence. What is fiscal prudence? Don't spend money as you feel like. Are you able to get this? No, I will spend like anything. Government, be very careful when you are spending money, including bureaucrats. Earlier, checks and balances were not there. Now it is not like you'll spend like anything. They're asking clearly, why don't you manage with a second-hand car? Are you able to get this? Clear, we're crystal clear. Fiscal prudence, spend appropriately. And moreover, government is using techniques like nudge, N-U-D-G. Heard of this word? Nudge techniques you call. Okay, this is something which was discussed in the last year budget. Nudge is something like a slight push to make you follow. See, how to make you pay tax? Either government can force you, that is punish. Second is if you pay, government should incentivize you. Two things here. Nudge is something like they are not going to give you direct incentive. Incentive is not given. At the same time, they are not going to punish you also. You are not paying, chalo, we'll put you behind bars. So that is also not there. Nudge is something like behavioral change. They want to change the behavior of people so that people, they themselves will pay tax. Are you able to get this point? For example, you know the scheme called as Give It Up scheme. Give It Up. Modi ji's Give It Up scheme. Heard of this? Okay, Give It Up. Give It Up is what? You give up subsidy. Wantedly. They're not saying you give up subsidy. No. Give up subsidy. If you give up subsidy, we will use that money for the rural mother. We'll buy a gas cylinder and we will be able to supply her gas cylinder. That means what is government trying to do? Government is not spending money from its pocket. Rather, government is saying you give up subsidy and with that money we are going to buy a gas cylinder for her. Are you able to get this? And Modi ji prepared a list of more than 1 crore people who gave up subsidy. With respect to LPG. Are you able to get this? So this is a nudge. Nudge is something like a behavioral change. And so that also will bring in efficiency with respect to what? Fiscal policy. Nudge is not just with respect to fiscal policy. Nudge can be even with respect to Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao. Beti Hamari Dhanlakshmi. Yes. Is there no program? Selfie with daughter. Yes, selfie with daughter program. All these are nudge techniques. Swachh Bharat, they're not, follow Swachh Bharat. No. There was an ad you can see, Swachh Bharat, where one fellow is putting kachra on the road and the other fellow is clapping. Fantastic, good job. Okay, so this is a kind of behavioral change. This is called as behavioral economics. Okay, bringing a change. What is the meaning of nudge? A slight push to bring in a favorable behavior. They're not going to punish you. All this they are using right now to bring in a change with respect to what? Fiscal prudence. That means government does not have money. Government is asking you to give up subsidy so that they can fund somebody who is in the rural area, the needy people. So this is also a new mechanism which they have gotten. I think you got my point right. Okay, so is this clear? Next point, write down. Steps have been taken. Next point. Steps have been taken to minimize cascading effect. Cascading effect is good or bad? Bad. Cascading effect will increase cost push inflation. Inflation is done right. Cascading effect will increase cost push inflation. Why? The cost of the product is going to increase. Okay, next point. Since 1991, there has been a continuous reduction. There has been a continuous reduction in the taxes on individual incomes. In the taxes on individual incomes, as it was felt that high rates of income tax were an important reason for tax evasion. Okay. Word is clear. Tax evasion means what? Escaping from paying tax. It is illegal. Now what Vodafone and Hutch have done, this is not illegal. Now listen very carefully. This is not illegal. This is legal only. But what did they do? They have used what? Tax loopholes. They have used the tax loopholes to avoid paying the tax. This is different. Okay, this is called as what? Tax avoidance. This is tax avoidance. MNCs generally, they don't resort to tax evasion directly. They go ahead with something like what? Tax avoidance. Now in this case, the transaction they did not do in India. The transaction was performed in some place called Cayman Islands. So therefore they say we will not pay tax in India. But they will do business in India. And when the income tax department goes and asks, why are you not paying tax? They will clearly say, in your income tax act itself you did not mention. Since it is not mentioned, then we are not going to pay. Okay, then they go to the court and Indian judiciary is super fast. Okay. That is the reason tax litigation should be less. Only then revenues will increase. More tax litigation, more disputes in the court, judgments, yeah. Got it right? Okay. So one more word I've mentioned here, tax evasion, tax avoidance. There itself, put the side heading just to mention so that tomorrow you will not find it difficult. Tax avoidance. Understood, I believe. Tax avoidance. Tax avoidance is not illegal. Companies use the loopholes. In the taxing system. Use loopholes in the taxing system to avoid paying tax. So, is that clear? That is what is avoidance. Avoidance. Evasion, escaping. Okay, clear. Then put the heading financial sector reforms. Financial sector reforms. Write down. I told you, these reforms means complete syllabus is there. Write down. One. Write down. Financial sector reforms include. Financial institutions. Such as commercial banks, investment banks, and stock exchange operations. Okay. So financial sector reforms means banking reforms, stock market reforms, all these reforms will be part of financial sector reforms. See, India was not ready with LPG. That is the reason you had people like Harshad Mehta, intelligent people like Harshad Mehta, who were able to grab the loopholes. You know, they made money using those loopholes. Was this movie no Big Bull? Nice movie, yeah. Okay, okay. Next point, write down. Very interested. Suddenly they'll stop, huh? Write down. Next point. The major aim of financial sector reforms. The major aim of financial sector reforms is to reduce the role of RBI. From being a regulator to facilitator of financial transactions. Okay, so write the point, then I will. Okay. Now see here. That means what? Before 1990, RBI's interference was more. After 1990, RBI's interference is less. Okay. Even today, RBI will not interfere and do. Suppose, let's say, if rupee and dollar rate is between, let's say, 75 to 80, they are fixed. RBI has fixed this. Suppose that means $1 is equal to, as long as it is between 75 to 80, RBI will say, I will not interfere. Are you able to get this? No. This is called as something like the dirty float. Dirty float is something like maximum we will leave things to the market. That means as long as currency value is between 75 to 80, RBI will not interfere, leave it to the market. But for suppose tomorrow the rupee value becomes above 80, that is 83, 85, depreciates more, or it appreciates more, then there is a challenge. Then only RBI will interfere. But earlier the situation was not like that. Earlier situation was somewhat different. Okay. Now you have discussed capital account, current account. In a different, you have discussed, no? Okay. So you have discussed convertibility of currency. No. Okay. So you've discussed what are the components of current and capital, right? I have discussed it. Okay. So you've not done separately. Okay. Leave. As of now, it's okay. Is it clear? So RBI's interference was less. So that means before 1990, RBI used to interfere more. Okay, RBI will decide the currency values. After 1990, market will decide. So you're giving a benchmark, you're giving a range. As long as the currency is within the range, RBI's interference will not be there. You're leaving things to the market, demand and supply. But when there is a problem, when there is over depreciation or over appreciation, then only RBI will interfere. So RBI's role has changed from being a regulator to a facilitator. Same with respect to government. No, government's role also after 1990 from being a regulator to a facilitator. The role of government today, if you observe, monetary policy is done. No, monetary policy is not done. Okay. Monetary policy, inflation is done, right? Yes. Okay. Nice. Okay. Next point, write down. Regulator to facilitator. Next point. Foreign institutional investors such as merchant bankers, mutual funds, and pension funds are now allowed to invest in the Indian financial market are now allowed to invest in the Indian financial market are now allowed to invest in the Indian financial market. Okay. So, ठीक है. Did I talk about the difference between bond and a share? No. Okay. See, this I will discuss in the capital market class. Which one? This exchange trade fund. Exchange trade fund. So, now basically, what is the basic difference between bond and a share? Okay, so we are using the word share market, we are using the word stock market, isn't it? Okay, so one small question to you all. What do you think is the basic difference between investing in shares and investing in mutual fund? The mutual fund you have written, no? Mutual fund you have written, pension fund company. Is there any difference between investing directly into shares and investing into mutual fund companies? You would have seen ads, no, in Radio Mirchi and all. Mutual funds are subject to? Shabash. Suddenly it will come. Mutual funds are subject to market risk. If you lose your money, don't ask me. That is the meaning of that. The meaning is, if you lose money, don't ask. Don't ask. The logic is, even in mutual funds, some amount of money gets into shares. There is a risk. You may earn money, you may lose money. That is why that subject to market risk. Subject to market risk. Are you able to get this? Okay. Now the question is, whenever somebody has to do business, you have options. What are the options you have if you have to do some business? One option which we have is, we can do business by raising debt, loan, okay. So either it can be parents and family, okay, or it can be corporate. Banks, corporate nahi. Okay, banks, or you have something called as a debt instrument. Okay, so the question is, parents and family, generally they will not give. Okay, they will not give, no. They'll ask you to go prepare for UPSC. Okay, no. Now next will be banks. Banks, you have an idea in mind. Go to a bank, go to SBI manager, tell him, I have a 500 crore idea in mind. Okay, give me some loan. He will say, okay, understood. Okay, so that means ideas in mind will not work for banks. You need to mortgage your assets. Or you are somebody like Tata, somebody like Vijay Mallya, somebody like Nirav Modi, then only they will give loans. Okay, so that is why banks were giving, all government banks were giving loans to Vijay Mallya. Okay, so bank is one more option. Bank is one more option we have. Okay, but banks only give to established companies, or you should have assets. That is clear, right? Now, another way of raising money from the market can be through these instruments called as debt instrument. And these debt instruments can be called as bonds. Bonds. Are you able to get this now? Bonds. Okay. Now listen very carefully. What is this bond? It is a kind of a paper. Bond is nothing but a paper, a promissory note type of thing, where it promises that if you buy this paper, I will promise you that I will pay you regular interest. You buying this paper, I promise you that I'll pay you regular interest. For example, let's take and understand with an example. Suppose I am the company, okay, and I decided to issue bonds or these papers. I decided to issue these papers. Each paper is costing 100 rupees. Each paper is costing 100 rupees. On this paper it says 100 rupees each paper. Then it says it will pay 5% or 10% interest, let's say every 6 months. Every 6 months it will pay you 10 rupees. Every 6 months it's going to pay you 10 rupees. Okay. And also this is not an everlasting bond. That means it will not pay interest for your lifespan, right? There will be some period that is basically called as the maturity period. Maturity means what is the bond validity period. Okay, so you will receive interest up to a particular period of time, not for unlimited number of years. So on this bond paper, you will have these things. Let's say I am the company, I issued these papers. Each one of you have purchased 10 papers. Each one of you have purchased 10 papers. That means each one of you have given me how much? Each one of you have given me how much? 1,000 rupees, isn't it? 10 papers you have purchased. So each one of you have given me how much? 1,000 rupees. Okay. So on each paper, every 6 months, you are receiving how much interest? 10 rupees, right? 10 rupees. So you will receive interest, 10 papers each one of you. So you will receive how much interest? 100 rupees interest you will receive every 6 months. Every 6 months. This you will receive for how many years? Let's say this bond is valid for 2 years. You will receive this interest for a period of how many years? 2 years. 2 years. Then even the principal amount will be returned back. Are you able to get this? Now in our transaction, in this transaction, who is the lender? Who is the borrower? In our transaction which we discussed, who is the lender? Who is the borrower? You are the lenders. I am the borrower. Are you able to? I borrowed money from all of you. I borrowed money from all of you, giving you papers called bonds. Is that clear? I borrowed money from all of you by giving you these papers, and you are holding these papers. That much is clear? Okay. So that means in our transaction, you are the creditor. Creditor is somebody who is giving credit. You guys are the creditors. Yes. And I am the debtor or the borrower. In this case, I am the debtor. Debtor means somebody who takes loan or borrows. You guys are the what? You are the lender or creditor. Creditor. Okay. Are you able to get this? That means I as a company have used an instrument called what? Bond to raise money from all of you. I as a company, I used this paper called as bond to raise what? I have used this paper to raise what? Debt. And that is the reason bonds are called as what? Debt instruments. That is the reason bonds are called as debt instruments. I think you have understood. See, in India, this market is not developed. Today, if suppose TCS is issuing bonds, Wipro is issuing bonds, Tatas are issuing bonds, nobody is interested. If bonds, everybody is ready to buy, they will not go to banks and take loans. They can directly take loans from the market itself. But since in India, bond market is not developed, they have to go to where? They have to depend on whom? Banks. Is this clear? The word bond is clear? Bond is what instrument? Debt instrument. That much is sufficient as of now, right? Debt instrument is clear. Okay. So if you buy bonds, what is that you're going to get? If you buy bonds, you're going to get what? Interest. If you buy bonds, you're going to get interest. Is this clear? Okay. Who are the bond holders here? You people are the bond holders. Bond holders are nothing but creditors. Bond holders. In our transaction, you are the creditor. You are the creditor, or you can also be called as what? Bond holder. Is this clear? Bond holder, creditor, okay, or lender. Okay. Why are you buying these bonds? You will get what? Interest. Now, first of all, for doing business, this is one option. That is debt. Debt is one option. Okay. So now when we talk about share, they are talking about bringing in reforms in the share market, stock market, etc. There's a difference. If you buy one share of a company also, it is as good as becoming part of the company. You're buying one share. You're buying one share of TCS means you are part of ownership. You're part of ownership means what? Tomorrow, if the company makes profits, you will get profits. If the company makes loss, you have to bear the loss. This is the basic difference between a shareholder and a bond holder. Shareholder has ownership. Bond holder does not have any ownership. Are you able to get this? Shareholder has ownership. Bond holder does not have any ownership. And one more important thing is, whenever the company is going to collapse, bankruptcy, always the company has to settle bond holders first. They will be settled first, then they will think of shareholders, then they will think of shareholders. Are you able to get this? In India, investing in shares, everybody doesn't do it, isn't it? In India, share market, they do, but if you compare to developed countries, for example, in India, though we get 3.5% interest in the bank, most of us are happy putting the money in the savings account. But what is the inflation rate today? 6.8 or 6.7 something, today's paper. Okay, it has reduced a little, CPI. Okay, that means your interest is 3.5, but inflation is how much? 7 or 6.5, means you're earning what? Nothing. You're earning nothing, no. See, inflation is 6, you're getting 3, 3.5, means indirectly you're not earning anything. In fact, it is negative. And still we decide to put money in the bank because we are risk averse. Risk averse, first of all, you don't have time, no? Okay, so let it be. Okay, who will think about other things now? I think you got my point right. Clear, bond will give you interest. If you buy shares, you get dividend. It promises something called as ownership. It promises something called as ownership. Is this clear till here? Okay. You would have seen Shark Tank. Don't know. Shark Tank, there will be investors sitting and there will be some people coming and pitching their ideas. And this shark fellow, like there are some shark fellows there, real sharks. Okay, now, okay, you got the point. Okay, now what he says, I will give you 1 crore, give me 25% in your company. 25% what? Share. He is asking 25% share. That is the best way to do business because you need not work. Are you got the point? No, got the point. That is what they do. That is what they do. So here, this is basically what he is asking for. He is asking for share or he is asking for what? Equity in the company. Equity in the company. Hope it is clear. Okay. So there is a role for share market. Stock market reforms. Basically, earlier we were not allowing FII. We discussed no FDI, FII. So BOP crisis was mainly because we did not have Forex. We wanted more Forex to move into India. So we liberalized norms with respect to allowing foreign investments into India. Foreign investments. And these foreign investments are part of current account or capital account? Acha. Don't turn your pages. Turning pages means it's like, when did we discuss? 3 days? Very good. Very good. Fantastic. Now, in current account, we discussed, no, trade is there, remittances are there, services, income. Okay? And in capital account, we put investment and borrowing. Okay? This is called short-term memory. Okay? Eat Dabur Chamatprash. Investments are part of which account? Capital account. We did not allow FDI, FII much into India before 1991. All these reforms were brought in as part of these reforms which we are writing. Okay, which are FIIs and all especially were going into where? They are going into share market. There were a lot of restrictions. So 1992 plus, we allowed foreign institutional investors also to put their money into shares. I think you're getting my point right. So who regulates these in share markets in India? Who regulates share markets in India? SEBI, Security Exchange Board. See, earlier we were not allowing investments. Why did we take that risk of allowing investments? Because we did not have Forex. Dollars were not there. Therefore we allowed, and also IMF also. Regulations of IMF, are you able to get this? Is this clear? So IMF said, open up your market. Opening up your market is not just about industrial policy. Industrial policy, that is liberalization. It is not only about tax. Again, we have written tax. It is also about financial sector reforms. Are you able to get this? So that is what we are talking about. It's also about allowing a lot of foreign investments into Indian share market. But our regulatory bodies like SEBI did not have the experience. They did not have the experience. They did not have the experience. SEBI did not have experience to handle. That is why scams will come. Regulatory bodies don't have the experience. And that is the reason you will find such scams coming on a continuous basis. So if the regulatory bodies have the experience, they will handle these better. Is this clear? Need for reforms. Okay, so why dollars are needed? So we allowed foreign investors to invest. Before 1992, there was no much discussion of FII. FII discussion itself is not there. Is this clear? Okay, now first thing is understood bond, basic of share. Capital market I'll get into a little more deeper. But now share means what you have understood, right? Equity. Ownership is decided based on share. Ownership is decided based on share, right? Okay. 51%, all that. Now the question is, mutual fund companies are also allowed into India. Insurance companies, pension fund companies. No. These were not allowed earlier. They were not allowed easily to invest into Indian markets. Invest into Indian markets. So when we talk about banks also, banks were performing only the core functions. Core function. What is the core function of the bank? Core function of bank is taking deposits and giving loans. This is the core function, giving loans. We have written a word called merchant banks. Merchant banks means these are banks which are investment banks. Investment banks. They are not the banks which perform only the core functions. Accepting deposit, giving loan. Accepting deposit, giving loan. Okay. These banks don't pay salaries much. If you see those big packages for MBA grads and all, so it is not for those banks which perform these, no, accept deposit, give loan, accept deposit. These are mainly investment banks. Investment banks means they invest money basically into share market. They help companies to issue shares. All this. Are you able to get this? These are basically called as what banks? You have written a word there. Merchant banks. Word, to understand the word. They are not the banks which do the core functions. They also perform investments into share market, etc., etc. Is that clear? Understood? No? Understand the term as of now, that's more than sufficient, I think. Okay, so is this clear? Okay. Some students are doing meditation. Okay. So, yes. Okay. Clear till here? Yes. Understood, right. Okay. So, we discussed bond, share. Don't meditate in between. Don't meditate in between, please. Okay, so by the time you come, then we are somewhere. Huh? I know you work very hard at nights and all. Yeah, studying for UPSC, but yeah. Here, see mutual funds. Come. Clear till here? Very good. The words are clear, no? Merchant bank, investment bank. Okay, share means you have understood. Bond means what? Debt instrument. Okay, very good. Now, sometimes you will find mutual fund in the news now. There will be salespeople who will come to you and say, buy. And he will say, I know about it. So if he knows about it, he will not be a seller basically. He would have invested. Okay, but the logic is mutual fund is something like what happens is, it is less risky in comparison to shares. Shares, risk is more. Shares, you will find that the risk is higher. Risk is high and also returns are also high. Same like civil services. Okay, risk, higher the return. Clear? Share. Mutual fund you will find that the risk is little less. Why? Because you will have somebody called as a fund manager who will prepare something like a portfolio. What he will do is, he will prepare a portfolio. He will prepare a portfolio like this. That means, suppose a basket, yes. There is a mutual fund basket. What is this basket? Now you say, all of us are putting money into one mutual fund. Money will get into different sectors, not just IT. Money can get into IT, money can get into manufacturing, insurance, infrastructure. Are you able to get this? Okay, so that means there is diversification. Are you able to get this? Money, if I am putting into a mutual fund, my money is not just getting into IT, it gets into banking, it gets into insurance, it gets into manufacturing. There is diversification. Are you able to get this? So why business is diversified? The diversification will basically avoid what? Risk. Are you able to get this? Okay, so, And mutual funds, you can't sell it to somebody else. Mutual fund, you can't sell it to somebody else. Share, you can sell it to somebody else. Yes, in the stock market. Mutual fund money, if you want, you have to go back to the company. Is this clear? That is a basic difference. Basic difference is clear. That's more than sufficient as of now, because later we can discuss. Understood financial sector? Is this clear? Okay. So we have written pension fund, Indian financial. Write down. Next. Next point. Yeah. Or if you want, you can mention there. Bond is a debt instrument. First, there only. We have discussed, no? So that you will not forget. Bond is a debt instrument. Just mention. Bond is a debt instrument. Okay. Then, comma, bond holders is equal to creditors. Bond holders is equal to creditors. Bond holders is equal to creditors. Is that okay? Then you can also mention one more point. Share markets are regulated by SEBI. Those who don't know, write the full form also. Share markets or stock markets are regulated by SEBI. Security Exchange Board of India. Write it full. Security Exchange Board of India. Is that okay? Then I think creditor, debtor and okay. So then next point, write down, continue. India was following a regime, write down. India was following a regime of quantitative restriction. India was following a regime of quantitative restriction. Quantitative restriction on imports. On imports. Through tight control. Through tight control over imports. Through tight control over imports. And by keeping the tariffs very high. And by keeping the tariffs very high. Tariffs very high. Continue. These policies reduced efficiency. These policies reduced efficiency. Reduce efficiency and competitiveness. And competitiveness. Leading to slow growth of manufacturing sector. Leading to slow growth of manufacturing sector. Okay, next point. Import licensing was abolished. Import licensing was abolished. Except in the case of hazardous, and environmentally sensitive industries. Environmentally sensitive industries. Last point. Export duties have been removed. Export duties have been removed. To increase the competitive position. To increase the competitive position. Competitive position of Indian goods. in the international markets. Competitive position of Indian goods in the international market. Clear, right? Okay. So, and we have touched the 8th plan, 9th plan. That we have scanned through that. Okay. So that is done, right? Yes. Okay. ठीक है. Okay. Clear till there? Okay, well, let's start the new topic. Okay. Done. See, I think one mains question, if you, I'll just give you. Let's see if you can try this. Of course, this is related to planning only. Okay. Question, just put up a question. I think the reverse side. Reverse side. India has moved from centralized to indicative. Right now, write this question. You can write it later, but just India has moved from. Write this question. India has moved from centralized planning to indicative planning. India has moved from. Write down. India has moved from centralized planning to indicative planning. Full stop. Analyze the reason behind such a shift. Analyze the reason behind such a shift. Full stop. Briefly explain how the setting up of Niti Aayog, briefly explain how the setting up of Niti Aayog has changed the planning perspective in India. Has changed the planning perspective. Has changed the planning perspective in India. Okay, one more question there. One more question. That is a 250 words question. 250 word, what you have written, 250 word. Write down one more question. Critically evaluate the success of 5-year plans. Critically evaluate the success of 5-year plans in addressing planned economic development in India. In addressing planned economic development in India. In addressing planned economic development in India. Is that okay? So these are 2 questions which you can try later. Okay. Fine. See here, see this is a huge topic, WTO. World Trade Organization. Heard of it? Oh, yeah. Okay, first I will mention what are we going to discuss in this topic, and then we'll start the discussion. Okay, so main areas what we are going to discuss in WTO. One is that is history. History is something like how this institution called WTO was formed. How this institution called WTO was formed in the year 1995. That is called as history. Okay. Okay. And the theory of Prebisch Singer hypothesis. Okay, this is responsible actually. This theory is the main theory of conflict, issues of conflict in the WTO between developed and developing or LDCs. Okay. Then we will also talk about the different agreements under WTO, the different agreements, main agreements under WTO. So we have different important agreements under WTO, like we have different agreements like one, we have something like something related to patents related aspect, which is called as the TRIPS. Okay, trade related intellectual property rights. I'll talk about it just to, don't worry, just to give you a structure of the topic. Okay, and we also discuss something like the agreements like agreement on agriculture. Agriculture is one such agreement which is the main issue of conflict between the developed and the developing countries. Okay. Then we have one agreement related to services also, which is called as General Agreement on Trade in Services. Okay. Then we have also something like an agreement related to investments like the TRIMS, Trade Related Investment Measures. These are all agreements under WTO. Okay, so we'll discuss those agreements under WTO, which are somewhat important for the exam. These are important for the exam. Okay, then, and also there are some agreements related to sanitary and phytosanitary measures, etc. Sanitary and phytosanitary. Okay, so sanitary and phytosanitary measures. So that is also one kind of agreement. We call some agreements like the plurilateral agreements. Plurilateral agreements means all countries will not sign. All countries will not sign. Few countries will sign. Few countries will say we will not sign. Okay, such agreements are also there. These are agreements on government procurement, etc. We'll talk about it. Then we also have to discuss something like the different ministerial conferences. The ministerial conferences, which is ministerial conference is something like the highest decision-making body under WTO. Ministerial conference is the highest decision-making body under WTO. So the recent ministerial conference, if you know, the recent ministerial conference is the 12th ministerial conference that took place in Geneva. Okay, so the recent 12th ministerial conference took place in Geneva, the recent one. Okay, so that means the first ministerial conference was something in 1996, which took place in Singapore. Okay, so there are some ministerial conferences, important ministerial conferences, which we will discuss. We can't discuss all, not needed also for the exam. So we have to discuss few important ministerial conferences like Singapore is there. Okay, then we also have the Doha Ministerial Conference, which is the 4th ministerial conference. Okay, so Doha, this was somewhere in 2001. And we should also discuss, there's this ministerial conference which took place in Bali. Bali Ministerial Conference was somewhere called as the 9th Ministerial Conference. Okay, that also has to be discussed in detail. And then we have something like the 10th Ministerial Conference, which took place in Nairobi. Okay, Nairobi, the 10th Ministerial Conference. Okay, so that also has to be discussed to some extent. These are important. Okay, and then you have the 11th one, not so important, but it is recent. That took place in Argentina. That is Buenos Aires. Okay, so which was nothing much happened, nothing much happened, and then the 12th ministerial conference, that is the recent one. This is the Geneva that took place in 2022. Okay, so like this, there are some important ministerial conferences which we have to discuss. Is this clear? Okay, so then along with that, we also have to discuss on something like, okay, here we have something like US is creating problems with respect to something like a dispute settlement body which is there under WTO. So dispute settlement body is where the conflicts can be resolved. Okay, so US was blocking the appointment of judges in this dispute settlement body. So this is also in news actually. How this body, crown body called dispute settlement, was losing its relevance because of developed countries like US. Okay, so this is also one more issue, that is how dispute settlement operates, why currently there is a challenge, okay, what else can be done with respect to dispute settlement. Then comes, do we think really that WTO is needed presently? Okay, WTO, do you think WTO, is it required? Is it required in the present scenario? Do you think WTO is needed? Or is it that WTO is always biased for the benefit of developed countries? Biased for the benefit of developed countries. This is something which you should know, because in the mains they may ask like, do you think WTO is biased for the benefit of developed countries? Or do you think there can be questions like something like, today you have more of regional groupings. Regional groupings are there now. Okay, like for example in international relations you will come across something like RCEP, Regional Cooperation Economic Partnership. Okay, so the regional groupings are increasing. Okay, do you think still such organizations hold relevance like WTO, etc.? They can ask such questions in the exam. Okay, so they can ask in your paper 2 or even in our economy paper. Okay, so this is one, and I missed out something here. The missed out one is something like the principles of WTO. I missed here. I'm putting it at 2.5. Okay, principles of WTO. I missed it. So that is something which we have to know. Principles of WTO. What are the main principles of WTO? So this would be the structure. This would be the structure of our discussion basically. Is this clear? Okay. These are the things we will discuss in WTO. Okay. Chalo, let's start. Now, you've discussed how a basic demand graph looks like. Second question is 150 words only. So, basic demand graph, basic supply graph, okay. And I think you would have discussed theory of market equilibrium, right? Who gave that theory? Adam Smith, right? Adam Smith, okay. Now, Adam Smith, right? Okay. See, these thinkers like Adam Smith or David Ricardo, these are basically capitalist thinkers, capitalism. These are thinkers who say they promote something like, or they are thinkers who support what? Capitalism. Okay. And all these capitalist thinkers, they always believe, that free trade, that is trade between different countries with least amount of restrictions. Free trade is always for the benefit of everybody. This is their logic. These capitalist thinkers, generally they feel, like Adam Smith, free trade is always beneficial for all the countries. That means free trade means what? There is, US is there are some countries like India, whichever country, okay, they are selling products, India is selling products. The products or services or investment is moving with minimum restrictions. Free trade is with minimum restrictions. There's no much restrictions. So what they believe is free trade is always for the benefit of everybody. See, capitalism is a philosophy which says, if somebody is in the gutter, let him stay in the gutter. Okay, so that means capitalism clearly says if somebody is not putting in effort to move forward, let him stay in the gutter. Let him die in the gutter. Okay, so capitalism basically believes in efficiency. Capitalism believes in what? Efficiency. You have the efficiency, you are running faster, you run faster. Okay, so this is how capitalism works. This is how capitalism works. You should understand the basic principle of capitalism. And socialism says that man who is in the gutter is also a man. And he is also an equal. And there is a need for a dignified life, even for that man in the gutter. Now, this is the philosophy of socialism, basically. Okay. Of course, today, we will find that capitalism has dominated the globe, and today we cannot replace capitalism. Remember, today we cannot replace capitalism with socialism. There's undoubtedly, you cannot replace capitalism with socialism. Only thing what you can do is, you can have a moral angle. You can have a moral angle, or use the word called as moral capitalism. For example, we are talking about corporate social responsibility. Isn't it? We are talking about corporate social responsibility, isn't it? Along with government focusing on foreign investments, etc., government also talks about MGNREGS, Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Schemes. That means you cannot replace capitalism because, okay, we cannot replace capitalism because what will happen is, if you take top 70, 80 countries today, you will find there are 30 to 40 companies whose total outputs net worth is more than the GDPs of the countries, more than the GDP of the country. So obviously companies will dictate terms to the government. Companies will dictate terms to the government. So today it is a situation, you wouldn't have heard of something like an IT raid on Reliance or some big top class companies till now. And you will not come across these kind of things in the near future also, because these are entities which run our economy. Are you able to get this point? No? They are running the economy. Tomorrow, though you become an IT, like you enter Reliance Gate, you'll get a call from the central government. Don't worry, come back. We know everything. Please come back. We know what we are doing. They are running the economy. And in capitalism now, there is a situation where companies are dominating the government. I think you're getting my point, right? So this is something which is a common phenomena, Now, but in capitalism, what happens? Capitalism believes all are not same, all are different. Those who are efficient, they'll run fast. If you are not efficient, die. Die means stay. Getting my point? No, this is how capitalism runs. And capitalism believes in market. Now, don't think India always believed in socialism. No. Kautilya's Arthashastra clearly talks about there should not be king's interference in the fundamentals of economy. Kautilya, very intelligent man and very practical. Kautilya never supported socialism or government's interference. Kautilya was always talking that the king should not interfere in the economic fundamentals of the country. He was very clear. So Arthashastra is very clear. Arthashastra clearly says in all that dharma, artha, all that, also he says first comes artha. Only then you can establish dharma. Without money, what you will do? Money is not there. How will you fix the systems? How will you fix the systems? No. But logically speaking, dharma, how will it come? You should have a police, you should have a proper systems in place for which king needs to have artha. This is what Kautilya is very clear with respect to the economic fundamentals and free market principles. But India, we adopted principles of socialism based on our situations after independence. Based on our situations after independence, we believed that we need a planned economic model, we need government's interference, etc. We believe that pure capitalism can exploit us because of the experience of the British rule. We had a very, very bad experience with British rule, and we were not in a position to give things to the private player. Government had to take up the responsibility in running the economy. Otherwise, India earlier believed in what? Free market, and India also believed that the king, and also Kautilya believes that the king should always expand his kingdom as much as possible to make his kingdom as big as possible, so that when you speak from positions of power, only then the opponent will listen to you. UPSC aspirant, if you speak, who will listen? Okay. IAS officer, they will listen somewhat at least. Are you able to get this? No, Kautilya is very clear, crystal clear. Kautilya is not like Gandhi. Kautilya is not like Gandhiji. Kautilya is very crystal clear. He says, expand the kingdom as much as possible and become powerful, because when you speak from positions of power, only then. See, today we are buying oil from Russia. Today we are buying oil from Russia. We are doing it. Okay, and the other countries are asking, why are you supporting Russia? We will buy. If we want, we will buy. If we don't want, we will not buy. This is our wish. Now, today you are being assertive. This assertiveness is not because India is a peaceful country. We were a peaceful country, non-violent country from the beginning. This assertiveness is because you became stronger from inside. This is what is self-reliance. This is what self-reliance can do. Once you become stronger from inside, then the other parties will listen to you. We did it, no? So now, earlier what happened in 2012? US dictated terms, don't buy oil from Iran. Though India and Iran were biryani friends from the beginning. Biryani friends, paradise, flavor and all, where it is coming from? It is coming from there only. And we had very good cultural ties. Cultural ties will not work when economics or when power speaks. You know, US is speaking, India could not resist. We stopped buying oil from Iran, we shifted to Iraq. And because of which our oil bills increased. Today, we are buying from Russia, whatever may be the reason. Okay, we are good with Ukraine, we are good with Russia, we are good with US also. Are you able to get this? Okay, and there are no sanctions against India. You know, there are sanctions. Sanctions means they did not levy any punishment or something on India. Do you think it is because India is a peaceful or a Shanti country? No, it is because India has become stronger with respect to economics, and then comes defense. I think you got my point right. Okay, so this is something which you should understand. How there is a transition with respect to India's assertiveness in the international arena. Earlier, we were not at all assertive. In fact, Manmohan Singh was very good, silent man. But we were not assertive. Assertive, you know, you will not speak. He's a very good economist. But never ever we spoke something. Why? Because it's the conditions. Conditions. That is why self-reliance. More self-reliance, more assertive. More assertive. More you are powerful, more you can dictate terms. You need not dictate, at least others will not dictate terms to India. So this is the situation. But the challenge here is, in the international arena, those countries which believe in capitalism, they say free trade will benefit everybody. What is Adam Smith's logic? Adam Smith says, you know, you have US, each country has its own competitive advantage. Each country has its own competitive advantage. Everybody cannot be good with respect to everything. So a country can be good with respect to few things. Each individual has competitive advantage. What is competitive advantage? What do you mean? What do you mean by competitive advantage? Competitive, anybody? What is competitive advantage? Something which you can do with less effort. See, competitive advantage. If you don't have competitive advantage in maths, means 15 hours you should work for CSAT. That means that is not my competitive advantage. I may pass, but that's not my competitive advantage. Competitive advantage is something which I do with less effort. Parents don't understand the competitive advantage and they say, my son should be an IIT and anyhow, without checking the genes. And the son is under tremendous pressure because you are running with horses. And by the time you reach the destination, wear and tear, depreciation will be there. Depreciation, mind, body, emotion, spiritual. He may reach, he may get into IIT, but I think completely depreciated. Now why? Because you have not identified his competitive advantage. It is in something else, you pushed him somewhere. I think you're getting my point. So competitive advantage. Similarly, countries have competitive advantage. Similarly, countries. What Adam Smith says is, now developed countries have competitive advantage with respect to manufacturing. Developed countries have competitive advantage. Like for example, even today, iPads, iPhones, the best of the best cars, laptops. Okay, any Indian laptop companies which you know, which are really good? Indian. That half-eaten apple is not ours. Okay. Indian company, Apple kahan se aa gaya?
Indian laptop I'm talking about. This is also Apple. Dell. This is Dell. Indian laptop. HCL. Okay. Used to make. Why they shut down? Efficiency. You're not able to recollect? No. That understood? No. So that means manufacturing or high technology products, competitive advantage is there for whom? Developed countries. Countries like India, developing countries, okay, we are good in services, okay, and mainly LDCs, etc., they are good with respect to which products? Primary products. Sugar, rice, wheat production, they are good. Okay, now what Adam Smith says is, you are good in manufacturing, you export these to them. Okay, they are good in primary, let them export those to the developed world. So free trade will benefit everybody. Free trade will benefit everybody. This is what the capitalist thinkers say. This is what the capitalist thinkers say. The developed countries which promote capitalism. WTO is also an institution which pushes capitalism. WTO, IMF, World Bank, all these institutions are very, very, very close to US, and these are institutions which push free trade, which enhance free trade, which promote capitalism. I think you're getting my point. Okay, so he says free trade is for the benefit of everybody because each country has its own competitive advantage. You manufacture those products where you have competitive advantage and export. They will manufacture those products where they have competitive advantage and they will export. Like this, it will lead to benefit of everybody. This is their logic. Got the point? No. But in reality, if you take empirical evidence, empirical means practical evidence, if you take, you will find free trade is not benefiting LDCs. You'll take the empirical evidence clearly shows that free trade is not for the benefit of everybody. You'll observe that free trade is not benefiting everybody. Okay. Why? Is, for example, just taken you've discussed elastic demand. You know elastic, inelastic. Words are clear? You know that, right? So now I'll ask you a question. Okay. For necessities, do we have elastic demand or do we have inelastic? That is done in the class, no? Elastic in. Done, no? Yeah, now so you tell me, for necessities, we have inelastic demand or elastic demand? Inelastic. Very good, very good. That means, let's take incomes. Suppose my income is increasing. Suppose my income was earlier 50,000 every month. Now it became 1 lakh. Then it became 2 lakhs. Now, as my income is increasing, I may shift to a better car. I want a better laptop. I may want a better iPad. I want a better motorcycle. Yes, as my income is increasing. That means, generally as my income is increasing, the demand for these products is income elastic, isn't it? Income elastic. Income elastic means what? My income is increasing, the demand for the products is also increasing. Everybody accepted. So income is increasing. I want a better iPad, I want a better laptop, I want a better car. Okay. But as my income is increasing, will I eat 100 rotis? No. Will I eat 100 kgs of rice? No. I will not stock my house with salt. Are you able to get my point? Means necessities are income inelastic. My income is increasing, but proportionately, I may go to a restaurant, 5-star hotel, and when the incomes are increasing, the demand for their products is what? Income elastic manufacturing, but the demand for primary products or agricultural products is what? Income inelastic. Everybody? Okay, now I'll ask you one more question. Till here, is it clear? Suppose you are manufacturing products. You decided to come up with a startup. You said, I will give Panga to Amazon or something. And you decided to come up with startup. You will manufacture products for rich, or you will manufacture for poor, or you will manufacture for middle class. You have got the question. Will you manufacture products for rich? Will you manufacture products for poor? Or will you manufacture products for Middle class. You have limited resources, huh? You are not a big shot. Okay, what you will do? Middle class? Rich? Okay, very good, Shabash. I'll ask you one more question. Demand for poor man. Poor man demand is elastic or inelastic? Poor man, inelastic. Poor man, inelastic. Yes? Why? 80% of his income he will spend on basic food and small peg. Very intelligent crowd. Huh? Okay. Basic food and small peg. Okay, very good. Okay, nice, nice. Yeah. But inelastic. Inelastic. What about rich? Elastic or inelastic? Okay. Ambani madam. Okay. Ambani madam, now increase in rice, increase in prices of wheat, increase in prices of cars, she is least bothered. Unless and until it is Reliance item. Okay. It is generally inelastic. Generally inelastic. No, she doesn't know in which car she is going to go today morning. Just the car comes, she goes. This is inelastic. Those who are saying I will manufacture products for middle class demand is elastic. For example, if you say vitamin D fortified milk 1 rupee more you pay, then he will say, wait, I will stand in sunlight. Ramdev Baba told, stand in sunlight. I will not pay 1 rupee 50 paisa more for vitamin D fortified milk. He will say that. And this is where Amazon plays. Amazon is price competitive. You cannot compete with Amazon. Don't say where there is a will, there is a way. Is this clear? Understood? Okay, now you understood elastic demand. Understood, no? You know that, inelastic. Now, so see here, come back. Now, Adam Smith says, free trade is for the benefit of everybody. Why? They are exporting this, manufacturing goods, and the developing countries or LDCs will export what? Agricultural products. But the challenge here is, let's say the income of India is increasing. When the income of India is increasing, okay, India is increasing, income is increasing, okay. But there will be more demand for manufacturing goods because their products are income elastic. But when the income of these developed countries is increasing, what will happen? There will not be so much of demand for agricultural or primary products. There will not be so much of demand for agriculture or primary products because the demand for these agricultural products is what? Income inelastic. Income inelastic, number one. Are you able to get this? Now, since you don't have so much of demand for these goods, so much of demand is not there for these goods, over a period of time, their prices will also fall. Prices are falling. Though the prices fall, the demand for these agricultural products is not price elastic also. Are you able to get my point now? Price elastic means if salt prices go down, that does not mean I will buy and stock my house with salt. I will only eat so much which is needed. Are you able to get my point? So that means though the prices of these products go down also, there will not be excess of demand of primary products. Are you able to get my point? Income inelastic, price inelastic also. Not just income, but also price. Price is falling, you need salt. Price is increasing, you need salt. Just because prices are falling, it's not that I will buy more of salt. Then how can you say free trade is for the benefit of everybody? When your incomes are increasing, we are buying more of iPads, etc., laptops. When US income is increasing, are they really buying our agricultural products as we are buying manufacturing products? This is not happening. So free trade need not be for the benefit of everybody. Moreover, developed countries use these organizations like WTO, and developed countries also give subsidies to their farmers. Which farmers are? Agriculture. Developed countries also give subsidies to their farmers, which is going to become counterproductive for countries like India. Counterproductive for countries like India. So this aspect which we have discussed, that free trade need not be for the benefit of everybody. Free trade need not be for the benefit of everybody is what is called as Prebisch-Singer hypothesis. Are you able to get this point? This free trade need not be for the benefit of everybody. This is what is called as Prebisch-Singer hypothesis. This theory is what is the issue of conflict between the developed and developing countries in the WTO. Always they are fighting in the WTO. In WTO, actually what will happen is India and US unite together. India, US unite together to fight with China. Why? Because China generally dumps its products. I'll talk about it. Dumping. Okay, China dumps its products. So therefore, India will fight against China. Okay, so, and US also fights against China in WTO. Is this okay till here? First, you have understood Prebisch. Is Prebisch-Singer hypothesis clear? Okay, very good. Put the heading WTO and put the heading Prebisch-Singer. Put the heading Prebisch-Singer hypothesis under the WTO only. Okay, write down, write down. The traditional theory of free trade, write down. The traditional theory of free trade proposed by Adam Smith, proposed by Adam Smith, proposed by Adam Smith, stated that free trade should result in higher profits. Stated that free trade should result in higher profits. Higher profits for all the nations engaged. For all the nations engaged. That is, it is virtually impossible. It is virtually impossible for any nation to produce all their consumption requirements, themselves at least possible cost. At least possible cost. At least possible cost. Continue. A particular country will find it profitable. A particular country will find it profitable in producing commodities on comparative advantage. Write down. On comparative advantage. On comparative advantage. Continue. It should export such commodities. It should export such commodities and import other commodities on the basis of economic principle, on the basis of economic principle, on the basis of economic principle. Next paragraph. The developed countries often argue, the developed countries often argue to promote free trade. The developed countries often argue to promote free trade, through organizations like WTO, but the conclusions of the above theory can change. When we look at an empirical evidence. With respect to LDCs. Okay. With respect to LD. Speed is okay? Continue. For most of the LDCs, their comparative advantage lies in production of agriculture, and other primary products, such as cotton, coffee, sugar, etc. Cotton, coffee, sugar, etc. Continue. It has been empirically proved that income elasticity of demand is lower for these products Okay. In contrast, income elasticity for manufacturing goods is higher. Continue. Is higher. The result of these two effects leads to decline in relative price of primary products and this decline does not lead to does not lead to significant rise in demand. Significant rise in demand. Continue. These two phenomenon together, make export earnings of LDCs, highly unstable, thus making free trade harmful for them. The above finding is popularly known as Prebisch-Singer hypothesis. Prebisch-Singer hypothesis. Prebisch. Prebisch-Singer hypothesis. This finding is the issue of conflict. Write down. This finding is the issue of conflict. Between developed and developing countries. On aspects related to international trade. Apart from this, full stop and continue. Apart from this, developed countries are protecting their agricultural markets. By giving huge subsidies, which are adversely affecting developing countries' market. Okay. That's it. Now take a break, then we'll continue. Yes. Okay. Origin of WTO. Origin of WTO, yeah. See, don't write anything, I'll anyhow dictate. Okay, so origin of WTO, if you see, there was, after the Second World War,
most of the developed countries were routed because of war. They were hit. Their economies were hit because of war. Most of the developed countries. And therefore, they wanted to revive. These countries' economies have to be revived. So to revive these economies, they wanted to plan something, and they have come up with conducting a conference called as the Bretton Woods Conference. The Bretton Woods Conference. Okay, in this Bretton Woods Conference, they have suggested several institutions which can revive the countries which were hit because of the war. And one such institution was the World Bank. Heard of that? Okay, World Bank. Okay. Two, they have also suggested one more bank called IMF, International Monetary Fund. International Monetary Fund. Okay. And they also suggested one more organization called International Trade Organization, or we call it as ITO, International Trade Organization. These two came into existence, World Bank and IMF, and therefore these are also called as Bretton Woods twins. They are also called as Bretton Woods twins, World Bank and IMF. Of course, this is not our discussion today. Okay, so they are called as Bretton Woods twins, but they also wanted an organization which can handle something related to international trade. But since US did not ratify, and there was lack of consensus, this organization did not come into existence. But instead of an organization, only an agreement has come into existence, and that agreement is called as General Agreement on Trade and Tariff, which came into existence in 1948. 1948. GATT, General Agreement on Trade and Tariff. Okay, so GATT came into existence. GATT is not an organization. First thing, GATT is not an organization. It is a stopgap arrangement. A stopgap arrangement which can handle, it's only an agreement which can handle issues related to international trade. So it is only an agreement. GATT was only an agreement, and it is going to handle something like issues related to international trade. Okay. In this GATT, after the formation of GATT, there were several multilateral trade negotiations. Which you call it as MTNs. Multilateral trade negotiations. See here, WTO is a body which promotes multilateral trade. Trade among more than two countries, basically. There's also bilateral trade. So there can be trade between two countries like India, Sri Lanka. Okay, there are also regional groupings. Okay, so the group of countries coming together with respect to trade. But WTO is basically a multilateral trade organization. Okay, but here this GATT, General Agreement on Trade and Tariff, which was the main agreement which was handling aspects related to international trade. And in this GATT was ratified. GATT was ratified by somewhere around 23 countries ratified it. And GATT came into existence. Now, after the formation of GATT, there are several multilateral trade negotiations that were held. Multilateral trade negotiations means group of countries will come, sit together and discuss on the issues related to trade. So when they were discussing, okay, in the eighth round of GATT, in the eighth multilateral trade negotiation, or this we can call it as the last round of GATT, which took place in Uruguay. Uruguay is a country. Okay, so this is also called as the Uruguay round, which took place between 1986 to 1994. So this was the last round under GATT, or the eighth MTN, eighth multilateral trade negotiation that was held. And in this eighth multilateral trade negotiation, several issues came to the forefront for discussion. One, there were conflicts with respect to issues like agricultural subsidy. Developed countries and developing countries always fight with respect to this aspect called as agricultural subsidy. US also gives subsidy. India also gives subsidy to its farmers. And there is a big issue of conflict is this aspect of agricultural subsidy. Two, there were also issues related to discussions on IPRs. IPR is intellectual property rights. Intellectual property rights like patents, copyrights. I'll come to that in the TRIPS agreement. Okay. So there was also discussion with respect to IPRs. They were also discussing issues like services, because 40 years after formation of GATT, 40 years after formation of GATT, okay, GATT did not cover services. GATT did not cover services. GATT was only handling trade with respect to goods. GATT was only handling trade with respect to goods, and GATT did not cover services. So obviously, this discussion of services also, because 40 years after formation of GATT, services trade expanded across the globe, and therefore issues related to services trade also started emerging, and that was not discussed as part of general agreement on trade and tariff. So services also came to the forefront, and they were also talking about issues related to dispute settlement, because GATT did not have a specific dispute settlement body. They were trying to handle disputes, but it did not have a specific dispute settlement body. So the issues like how do we come up with a separate dispute settlement body which can handle international conflicts with respect to trade. This was also there. They also discussed aspects related to investments. So that means how investment should be allowed into other countries with less restrictions, etc. So they also discussed on issues related to investments, agriculture subsidy, IPR policies, services, dispute settlement. Like this, most of the issues, several issues came to the forefront in the last round of GATT, which is also called as the Uruguay round, which took place between 1986 to 1994. Okay. But mainly, the biggest problem here was mainly with respect to this aspect called agricultural subsidy. There was a deadlock. You know what is a deadlock? They are fighting, but they were not able to resolve it. Many times in WTO, they fight. And generally, there will not be solution. They go, come back. So you'll understand slowly. So deadlock. So that time, there was this person called Sir Arthur Dunkel. Okay, so Dunkel, he was the DG of GATT. He was the DG, Director General of GATT. Okay, he came up with something called as the Dunkel draft. He has come up with a Dunkel draft. So Sir Arthur Dunkel was the head of the GATT or Director General of GATT. So he prepared a Dunkel draft. In this Dunkel draft, he has put all these items. What are the issues which are there? And mainly the focus was with respect to this aspect called as agricultural subsidy, because there is lack of consensus. There was a lot of conflict with respect to this aspect called agricultural subsidy. And the same Dunkel draft later was put to vote at a place called Marrakesh, Morocco. Okay, so this is also called as Marrakesh Agreement. Okay, so Marrakesh Agreement. So all this Dunkel draft was put to vote at a place called as Marrakesh, that is Marrakesh Agreement. And this Marrakesh Agreement has laid the foundation for formation of WTO in the year 1995. Marrakesh Agreement. Okay, so Dunkel draft was prepared, and in this Dunkel draft, all the issues were put forth. But also the most important issue where there was a deadlock is this agricultural subsidy, and this Dunkel draft was put to vote in Marrakesh. India is a founding member of WTO. So WTO came into existence in 1995 with its headquarters at Geneva. As a multilateral organization, and WTO has replaced this agreement called General Agreement on Trade and Tariff. So that means GATT was replaced, and now you have a organization called WTO. Is this clear, everybody? Okay. So there are some differences which we can observe, directly between GATT and WTO. First thing is, GATT was only a agreement. WTO is basically a organization. GATT did not cover aspects related to services related aspect. Okay, WTO covered both issues related to goods plus also services. This is one more. Okay, and then GATT did not have a specific, you don't have a specific dispute settlement body. There is dispute settlement mechanism, but you didn't have a specific dispute settlement body which can handle disputes, but WTO has a separate dispute settlement body. Are you able to get this? Okay, so this is how WTO emerged in 1995, and they started discussing on different agreements, okay, which were there, like agreement on agriculture. Why? Because of a problem on agricultural subsidy, like that. So one important aspect what you should observe is WTO, the decision making is based on consensus. Consensus. So that is better actually. That means every country has vote strength is same. Unlike IMF. IMF is little different. The way IMF operates, so IMF, the decisions in IMF are not based on consensus. In IMF, it's a different story. So IMF, each country's vote strength is different. Each country's vote strength is different. We use the word called as quota in IMF. Don't worry about it. But what you should understand is, in IMF, each country's strength, vote strength is different. For example, US vote strength is around 17.2%. And any important decision you want to take in IMF, you need a vote strength of 85%. It clearly shows unless and until US votes, you cannot take any important decisions in IMF. But in WTO, the decisions are based on what? Consensus. Consensus. You know what is consensus, right? Each country's vote strength is same. Okay, so each country. So decision making is based on consensus. See, and one more thing what you should understand is, just because we have organizations like WTO or World Bank or IMF, that doesn't mean everything will be fair and justice will be ensured. I think you're getting my point. No, so that WTO is there, so everything will be fair with respect to trade. We can't say, you'll understand. Everything is fair with respect to agreements? No. No, it's not. It's not. Why? Because there is always that pressure of the powerful taking over the powerless. Powerful taking over the powerless is always visible even in the WTO. Okay, I'll talk about it later, but put the heading formation of WTO. Formation of WTO. Yeah. Clear? Write down. Formation of WTO can be traced back. Formation of WTO can be traced back to the economic situation. Immediately after Second World War. Can be traced back to the economic situation immediately after Second World War. Full stop. Continue. International economic cooperation was a necessity. International economic cooperation was a necessity. International economic cooperation was a necessity. And to achieve this goal, a number of international organizations were formed under the Bretton Woods Conference. 1944. Under the Bretton Woods Conference, 1944. Continue. Full stop and continue. Apart from formation of World Bank and IMF, an organization called ITO was also proposed was also proposed to tackle trade barriers to tackle trade barriers to tackle trade barriers and other issues related to trade to tackle trade barriers and other issues related to trade. Other issues related to trade. Okay, continue. Full stop and continue. Although ITO was never formed, although ITO was never formed, due to lack of consensus, due to lack of consensus, due to lack of consensus, especially US, due to lack of consensus, another agreement called GATT, another agreement called GATT, GATT, and please write the full form also there if you don't know. General Agreement on Trade and Tariff. General Agreement on Trade and Tariff, and close the bracket. Another agreement called GATT was signed by 23 countries in Geneva. Was signed by 23 countries in Geneva. Okay, continue. GATT came into force. GATT came into force from 1st Jan 1948. From 1st Jan 1948. Continue. Till the formation of WTO in 1995. Till the formation of WTO in 1995. GATT was the only multilateral institution. Sorry, GATT was the only multilateral agreement. Okay. GATT was the only multilateral agreement governing international trade. Governing international trade. Governing international trade. Is that okay? Continue. Totally 8 multilateral trade negotiations. Totally 8 multilateral trade negotiations were held under GATT. Totally 8 MTNs. 8 multilateral trade negotiations were held under GATT. Okay, continue. MTNs tried to tackle MTNs, that is multilateral trade negotiations. MTNs tried to tackle some of the basic issues related to international trade. Some of the basic issues related to international trade, like tariff and non-tariff barriers, like tariff and non-tariff barriers. But within 40 years of operation of GATT, its members felt that the system was inefficient. Its members felt that the system was inefficient. The system was inefficient to handle problems of to handle problems of globalizing world economy. To handle problems of globalizing world economy. Okay, continue. These issues came to the forefront, full stop and continue. These issues came to the forefront during the 8th MTN of GATT, during the 8th MTN of GATT in Uruguay. 8th MTN of GATT in Uruguay. Is that okay? 8th MTN of GATT in Uruguay. Continue. During the Uruguay round, the talks took place on many new areas. The talks took place on many new areas of the trading system. Many new areas of the trading system, like trade in services, IPRs, intellectual property, IPRs, etc. Apart from emergence of these new issues, full stop and continue. Apart from emergence of these new issues, differences also arose among member countries. Differences also arose among member countries. Differences also arose among member countries on issues like agricultural subsidies. On issues like agricultural subsidies. Okay. Continue. To tackle this deadlock, Sir Arthur Dunkel, if you don't want sir, remove and write. Okay. Okay, Sir Arthur Dunkel, DG of GATT, DG of GATT, proposed Dunkel draft. On the basis of this draft, an act was signed by 123 nations, including India, on April 15, 1994. On April 15, 1994, at Marrakesh. Okay, full stop. As a result of Marrakesh Agreement, WTO came into existence. From 1st Jan 1995. 1st Jan 1995, with its headquarters at Geneva. Currently, WTO has 164 members. 164 members. 164 members with its current head. Current head is difficult. See. Yeah, wait. I don't know how to pronounce. You only. Right. Okay. Very good. Ngozi Okonjo. Okay. The lady from, I think, Nigeria. Yes. Ngozi Okonjo Iweala. Yeah. Yes. So I have this pronunciation problem. So you just write down there. Iweala. Eala. Clear? Very good. Done? Done. Yes. Done? No? Yes. They will not ask that. UPSC will not ask. Okay, so now next is principles of WTO. Principles of WTO. I will explain first, and then once I explain a principle, then we will write. So principles of WTO. First principle of WTO is trade without discrimination. First principle, and the most important principle also. Trade without discrimination. Trade without discrimination. And this principle has two important aspects. This principle has two important aspects. One is we have the concept of most favored nation, MFN. Okay. Another one is the concept of national treatment. So you find most of the agreements of WTO are based on this logic of national treatment. Most of the agreements of WTO are based on this logic of national treatment. So two things here I have written. One is MFN, most favored nation, and another one I have written here, national treatment. Okay. So anybody wants to try? What is MFN? Other than the full form. Most favored nation. Other than the full form, anybody wants to try what it is? Yes, bolo. Okay, trade. Okay, that status if you give. Yeah. What he says is most favored nation logically means there is nothing like a most favored nation. See here, there is nothing like a most favored nation. That means, for example, India is doing trade with 164 member countries in WTO, 163 member countries in WTO. And I have some trade rules with a particular country, which I may feel is the most favored country for me. I'll have some trade rules. India will be following the similar kind of trade rules with all other member countries of WTO. That means India will not alienate any country with respect to trade restrictions. India will be treating all these countries on similar lines with respect to the trade rules which it follows. Are you able to get this? For example, if you know, India gave MFN status to Pakistan way in 1996. 96 we gave MFN status to Pakistan. It means once you become member of WTO, automatically you'll give that MFN status. We gave MFN status to Pakistan. It means India will not alienate Pakistan with respect to trade fundamentals. We will treat Pakistan on similar lines as we treat all other member nations or our most favored nation. Any most favored nation you're having some trade rules, same things will apply to Pakistan, because just because Pakistan is an enemy country, you're not going to alienate Pakistan. You'll treat Pakistan on similar lines. But Pakistan did not give MFN status to India. Pakistan did not give MFN status to India. It's there, up to them. They did not give MFN status. Actually, if we want, we can take Pakistan and fight in the dispute settlement body. But we were not interested in taking Pakistan and going and discussing about it. Okay, why? Because we don't do much trade with Pakistan. We do some trade with Pakistan, but we don't do so much of trade with Pakistan as we do with other country, so we are not so keen in taking Pakistan to the dispute settlement body or something. But recently, we cancelled MFN status to Pakistan. After there was this attack where many CRPF Jawans died. Okay, so because of that, we wanted to tell Pakistan, you are different. We wanted to tell Pakistan, we are punishing you. We are removing MFN status to Pakistan. We revoked MFN status. That means we will not treat you on similar lines as we treat all other member countries of WTO. This is basically a kind of, we wanted to show Pakistan, change your attitude. Okay, that is the reason we are revoking MFN status. But Pakistan never gave MFN status to India. Pakistan was not interested in giving most favored nation status to India. Is that clear? So indirectly it means, most favored nation concept means whatever rules you have with your best country, most favored nation, the same rules you will follow with all other member countries. All other member countries. You're not alienating all these member countries under WTO. That means you're treating them on a similar platform. Is it clear? Understood, no, everybody? Yes. But there are exceptions. There are exceptions to MFN status. There are exceptions. For example, what are exceptions? Exceptions can be bilateral agreements. Bilateral agreements. For example, India has a bilateral agreement with Sri Lanka. India, Sri Lanka, we have a separate free trade agreement. This is not under WTO. Separately, India and Sri Lanka has a separate agreement, bilateral agreement with Sri Lanka. That means when we are doing trade with Sri Lanka, we will do trade with Sri Lanka by levying minimum duties, minimum tariffs. This is because of the bilateral agreement. This is because of the bilateral agreement. That does not mean whatever we do with Sri Lanka will apply to all other member countries. It will not apply to all other member countries under MFN. This is an exception. You know, you're getting it right. This is an exception. What I mean by exception, this is between India and Sri Lanka only. This will not be applicable to all other member countries of WTO because this is related to a bilateral agreement between India and Sri Lanka. Are you able to get this point? There are bilateral agreements. There are regional groupings. So, for example, RCEP, heard of RCEP? Regional Cooperation Economic Partnership. Okay. India moved out of this regional grouping. Don't worry much about it if you don't know also. Regional grouping means these group of countries, they will have some trade related rules among themselves. This is only with respect to those regional grouping, those countries which are part of RCEP. That does not mean they will follow similar rules with all other member countries of WTO. That means those regional groupings or free trade agreements, these are an exception to the concept of MFN, are an exception to the concept of MFN. That means just because I treat Sri Lanka differently because of this agreement, that does not mean I will give the same preference to all other member countries of WTO because it is based on that bilateral agreement between India and Sri Lanka. So these agreements are an exception to most favored nation concept. I think it is clear. Understood, no? Okay, then comes the concept of national treatment. Anybody wants to try? What is national treatment? Imported goods are not discriminated. Okay. See here, very important. National treatment means I am giving domestic treatment or national treatment to the foreign goods or foreign entities which have entered into the domestic territory of India. Listen very carefully. Suppose this is India. You have US or there are goods of UK which have entered into the domestic territory. So they have manufactured steel, they have manufactured some other products in India. These foreign companies, all are foreign companies, they have manufactured some products in India. They have entered into the these goods have entered into the domestic territory. Once these goods have entered into the domestic territory of India, this is the domestic territory of India, I will treat them on similar lines as I treat Indian entities. Are you able to get this? I will treat them on similar lines as I treat Indian entities. That means I'm going to give these entities national treatment. National treatment. That means as I treat Indian steel entities or Indian companies, Indian goods, on similar lines I'm going to give national treatment to the foreign entities also. Are able to get this? This is called as what? National treatment. See, remember, national treatment will be applicable only after the product enters the domestic territory. Very important. National treatment will only be applicable only after the product has entered the domestic territory. That means, suppose if we are levying something called as customs, some tariffs here, before the product is entering, before US Steel enters India, we are levying some duty, we are levying some tariff. That is not a violation. This is not a violation. I can levy this. This can be levied. This is not a violation of the principle of national treatment. This is not a violation of principle of national treatment because these tariffs are levied before the product has entered into the domestic territory. So levying customs duty is not a violation of national treatment. Are you able to get this? So national treatment will be applicable once the entity has entered into the domestic territory. Customs is levied when? Before the product has entered into the domestic territory. Are you able to? That means tomorrow customs is a violation of national treatment. Statement is wrong. Levying customs is not a violation of national treatment concept because customs is levied before the product is entering into the domestic territory. Hope you have followed this. Okay. Is this clear? So when we talk about customs today when we talk about customs, basically, if you understand customs, how it operates, very important. See, customs duties are levied basically on two. One is import. Customs can be levied on import. When you are buying products or moving into the country, customs can also be levied on export. Today we are not levying customs on exports much because our product will become non-competitive in the international market. So we are more into what? Levying customs on import. In the planning class, we have talked about using the word import substitution. Isn't it? How will you do import substitution? Levy more customs duty so that though the product comes into the country, that product will become costly and nobody will buy that product. Are you able to get this? Okay, so you are restricting by using the customs. Are you able to get this? So, even today, the basic customs duty is not included in GST. Even today, when we talk about when the product is entering into the market, we talk about, so maybe the products can enter from US or product is entering from China. Okay. So, once the product enters, the first tax that will be levied, first tax will be the basic customs duty, you call it as the BCD. The basic customs duty will be levied. On that, all other taxes will be piled up on the value you get. So this basic customs duty that is levied, even today, this is outside our GST. Even today, this is outside our GST. So the customs officer says, customs is my discretion. IRS customs, if you talk, is my discretion means I will decide which product will enter, which product will not enter the domestic territory. That ego will be there. Okay, it's okay. Why? Because he will decide which product will enter, which product will not enter. If there's some problem, he will keep the goods aside. Are you able to get this? No. If there is a problem, he will keep the goods aside. That is their power. That is their power. See here, the basic customs duty, even today, is outside the GST system. It is not included in GST. That means separately, it is levied. Even today, this basic customs duty is levied separately. Levied separately. That is the meaning. I think you're getting my point. Okay. Now, what they do is, after levying the basic custom duty, after the basic customs, they levy something called as the additional customs duty. On that, they levy something like, once this is levied, let's say the base rate is 9% or 8%. On that, they levy something called as the additional customs duty, or this additional customs duties are also called as countervailing duties. countervailing duties. Countervailing duty. Now, this is the difference. What is this countervailing? Why is this countervailing duty levied? Is countervailing duties are levied mainly to handle excess subsidy given by other countries. The main logic of countervailing duty is what is, suppose US is giving hell a lot of subsidy for its steel manufacturers. Their steel will be cheap. Are you able to get this? And they are pushing their steel into India. So Indian steel manufacturer will lose out in the market. Are you able to get this point? And that is the reason there will be countervailing duties or additional custom duties that are going to be levied. So what is the purpose of countervailing duty? Two purposes. One is basically to counter excess subsidy, given by other countries, number one. Okay, so we'll make their products costly because they're giving too much of subsidy. Our steel market will get affected. And therefore, we are going to levy this duty called countervailing or additional customs. Is this okay? Okay. Similarly, if you know, customs is levied on what? Export and import. Similarly, excise is levied on what? Excise is levied on manufacturing on or production. Today you don't have excise separately because excise is included in GST. Excise is included in GST except for alcohol and all. Alcohol is not included in GST, no, state. Alcohol for human consumption. Yes, alcohol is used in medicine, etc. That is different. I am talking about alcohol for human consumption. Alcohol for human consumption, no GST. It is outside GST. State government. During COVID also, most of the states have first opened alcohol shops. Yes. Revenue. While filling the mains DAF also, there are students said, sir, no Gujarat, nikalo. Why? No alcohol. Very specific. Some students are very, no. We'll put it back, little back you push. Okay, students are also very specific in filling the forms. And state governments get a lot of revenue. Okay, so but forget about that. What you should think of is, excise is on what? Manufacturing or production. Customs is on what? Import and export. Now the thing is, suppose there is a domestic steel manufacturer who is manufacturing steel in India, and he is paying something like 14% excise because he's manufacturing in India. 14% excise is paying, but in US or in China, the excise duties are low, and they are pushing their products into India. Means this domestic manufacturer will lose. Are you able to get my point? Okay, so two purposes. Countervailing duty handles two things here. One, it tries to handle excess subsidy given by other countries, and it will also try to balance of the excise duties paid by the domestic fellow. Domestic manufacturer is paying so much of excise, his steel will become costly in India, and therefore to counter that also, you levy these duties called countervailing, etc. Are you able to get this? Understood. These are included in GST. Today it's only about the basic custom duty. I put basic customs only is outside GST. Hope you are able to follow. Okay. Then they come up with something like special additional duties. On this again there will be one duty called SAD. Special additional duties are whenever there is something like interstate trade, inter-country trades now. So when the trade is happening, you have these kind of duties called special additional duties. And over and above all that, if you see that a particular country like China is known for dumping. China is known for dumping goods. Dumping means, suppose the cost of production of this pen is 100 rupees in China, 100 rupees. Wantedly, China is selling this pen at a cost of 90, lower than the cost of production in its country. Lower than the cost of production in its country, you call it as dumping. Are you able to get this? This is also called as cost dumping. It is also called as what dumping? Cost dumping, or we use words like predatory dumping. Predatory dumping, wantedly They want to kill the pen market in India. So they are selling this product at a price lower than the cost of production in their country. Are you able to follow this? Then we can go ahead and levy. We will on all this. Then only you can levy something called as anti-dumping duty. As a norm, you cannot levy anti-dumping. As a norm, you cannot levy. Anti-dumping means what? To prevent what? Dumping. To prevent dumping. You cannot levy anti-dumping just like that. Just like that. China will go to WTO and file cases against India in the dispute settlement body, saying that unnecessarily India is levying something what? Called as anti-dumping. This is the challenge basically. That means who should prove that China has dumped products? India should go and prove the onus lies on the country like India which got affected because of dumping. So you have to prove dumping. So otherwise what will happen? You cannot levy something called as anti-dumping duty. So this is the order. Huh? So this order is followed. This order is followed. So WTO talks about free trade means, first of all, free trade has removing customs, removing tariffs. Removing tariffs means basically removing customs barriers. Removing custom barriers. Custom duty, import and export barrier. That will promote what? Free trade. That will promote free trade. And also WTO talks about like free trade in the format of government clearances. Government clearances. Clearances means there should be something like a single window clearance. Single window under a single platform. All the government approval should be given. Otherwise what will happen? You will take your file and run behind officers to get approvals, and not so easy. So single window clearance means easily approvals will be given, custom clearances will be simple, things will be made online, and these troubles should be reduced. This is what WTO tries to promote in the format of what? Free trade or trade without discrimination. Trade without discrimination. Are you able to get this? So trade without discrimination, mainly two important aspects. One is MFN, another one is national treatment, and you should know what is customs. Okay, see, tariff barriers are there. These are all tariff. No, customs is a tariff, tax. But there are also non-tariff. Non-tariff. Non-tariff means not tax. Okay, that how can you do that? You will say, I will only buy 100 pens from China. Though there is a lot of demand, you will say, I will buy only 100 pens from China. This is basically a non-tariff barrier. Non-tariff barrier. Non-tariff. See, Trump the psycho, Trump was unhappy. I'll tell you why he's a psycho when I'm discussing Buenos Aires. See, Trump was unhappy with respect to our their Harley Davidson motorcycles entering into India, because earlier we were levying 100% duty. 4 lakhs motorcycle, 8, 16, 32. And Trump was saying, why you want to protect your motorcycle market? India's logic is 900cc, 1000cc motorcycle, and that too on Indian roads is a luxury. Okay, luxury no. You have to find roads, no. Okay, so find roads. So therefore, it's a luxury, so we are levying so much of duty. Later on we reduced. And they were also not happy with respect to we levying duties on their smart watches. Okay. They were frustrated with respect to a non-tariff barrier. Modi ji said, we will not buy dairy products from US because you are feeding your cows with non-veg. No, this is what barrier? This is what? Tariff or non-tariff? Non-tariff barrier. Suppose you say, your cow feed is non-veg, therefore we will not buy dairy products. Why? Because in India, vegetarians have milk. Now you are feeding your cow with non-veg, means milk becomes non-veg, so we are not going to buy. So these are barriers to protect our domestic. They also do. They'll say, we'll not buy Alfonso mangoes from India. Will not buy Alfonso mangoes because you are using pesticides. In India, without pesticide, is it possible? No, they don't understand. They say, you are using chemical fertilizers, pesticides. India exports a lot of buffalo meat. You know this? Okay, and there were restrictions on buffalo meat and also shrimp. shrimp, prawn kind, prawn. Okay, like this. These are what barriers? Non-tariff. So WTO always talks about converting these non-tariff into tariff. Non-tariff are dangerous. You can't, product doesn't enter. Then slowly over a period of time, you should also reduce what? Tariffs. Slowly over a period of time, you should focus on reducing the tariff barriers also. Is this clear? Put the heading principles of WTO, and the first heading would be trade without discrimination. Principles of WTO, and first heading trade without discrimination. Trade without discrimination. In bracket, non-discrimination, trade without discrimination. First point, first side heading, most favored nation. Most favored nation. Most favored nation. In international economic relations, write down. First point, in international economic relations, and international politics, MFN is the status or level of treatment accorded by ACC ORDED, accorded by one state to another, in international trade, Continue. The term means the country which is the recipient of this treatment, must nominally receive equal trade advantages as the MFN, means as the most favored nation, as the MFN, by the country granting such treatment, by the country granting such treatment, full stop. In a nutshell, nut, NUT, shell, yes, in a nutshell, write down. MFN is a non-discriminatory trade policy. MFN is a non-discriminatory trade policy. As it ensures equal trading, among all WTO member nations. Is that okay? Then put exceptions. 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 Free trade agreements. FTA. Bilateral. Free trade agreements. FTAs. Comma. Regional trade blocks. Regional trade blocks. Regional trade blocks like RCEP or EU, European Union. See, actually, there was something like a generalized system of reference. Don't worry. That is also an exception. GSP you call it as. Okay, generalized system of references is something like US makes a list of all developing nations list. Okay, and US, when it is doing trade with these developing nations, the tariffs will be less. That is called as GSP. Okay, but what happened is India was removed from GSP list. US removed India, okay, from GSP list. Of course, we also said, okay, thank you. Okay, because we were not so much keen with respect to staying in the list. Okay, so that was called as GSP list. Of course, this was, I think, around, it took almost like 1 year back or 1.5 years back. GSP. So that means what? In that list, if there is a country, with that country, US will do trade or business with less tariffs. But that does not mean it will do the same kind, it will follow the same rules with all other member countries of WTO. So that is also a exception. That is also an exception for MFN. So that's okay. And then put the heading national treatment. Last, national treatment. First point, national treatment. First point, treating foreigners and locals equally. Treating foreigners and locals equally. Next point. National treatment only applies to service or item of intellectual property that has entered the market. Item of intellectual property that has entered the market. Therefore, charging customs duty on an import is not a violation of national treatment. Even if locally produced products are not charged an equivalent tax. Even if locally produced products are not charged an equivalent tax. Is that okay? Then you can put this box there. Okay, and of course in taxing, again in detail, but now you'll just mention, after putting the box, you'll write customs is levied on export and import. Write down. Is it okay? Customs is levied on export and import. Just the basic right there. Customs is levied on export and import. First point there. Is that okay? 2. Excise is levied on production or manufacturing. Excise is levied on production or manufacturing. Please write. Again, after 1 week, you will forget. I have the confidence. Excise is levied on production or manufacturing. Then write countervailing duties. Countervailing duty. Countervailing duties. Countervailing duties are levied. Write down. There only. Countervailing duties are levied. Countervailing duties or additional custom duty are levied to handle excess subsidies. To handle excess subsidies. Excess subsidies given by other countries. Excess subsidies given by other countries. And also, is the speed okay? And also offset, OFF, and also offset excise duty, paid by the domestic manufacturer, and also offset excise duty paid by the domestic manufacturer. Is that okay? Okay. Anti-dumping duty is levied to handle what? Dumping. Anti-dumping duty is levied to handle dumping. There put the heading dumping or put the heading cost dumping. Dumping. Dumping is selling a product. At a price lower than the cost of production. At a price lower than the cost of production. In the home country. Lower than the cost of production in the home country. Is that okay? It is also called predatory dumping. It is also called predatory. You know predator? Yeah. Predatory dumping. Yeah. It is also called predatory dumping. Done. Tomorrow we have class? Okay.